to this, welcome to this Blackbird webinar. My name is Jeff Krebs, and I wish you a warm welcome. I'm VP of Product and Editor with Blackbird, and thanks so much for joining. In this next half hour, I'll be discussing video effects and how they work in Blackbird's cloud-native editor that runs in a web browser. First, a brief introduction to Blackbird, and we'll just do some housekeeping with keep the slides very short and really get into the editor right away. So Blackbird offers editing with a plethora of features that go along with editing. At the heart of Blackbird is a proxy video editor running in a web browser that features a very clever video and audio format, a codec, if you will. And that enables video and audio editing, graphic adjustments, all within a cloud environment. For your staff and the users, you folks, it means that you can work with Blackbird wherever you have internet access. So you don't need a lot of bandwidth. Blackbird becomes incredibly useful with an entry point of as little as 2 megabits per second. Some honorable mentions for workflows include, but are not limited to, live clipping, QC controls such as blurring and audio bleeping, closed caption workflows, multi-camera syncing, editing, logging for non-live and live content, direct publishing to social media and owned and operated web platforms, and of course, rich AAFs for imports and exports to and from other nonlinear editing systems. And yes, Blackbird can edit frame accurately within all these workflows. So what are we going to discuss today? We're going to be discussing effects within the Blackbird editor, and we'll subcategorize them as horizontal effects. So for instance, instant transitions, fade effects, time-based motion effects. We'll be looking and diving deep into sublayers, and that will involve transform effects, color adjustments, image effects such as blur, crop, borders, and titles. Horizontal layer effects such as pushes, slides, template applications, and alpha channel effects as well. Of course, color adjustments using color adjustments as well as vignettes or color masks, and we'll dive into that. As well as vertical control over the over your layers, and that involves things like crop, picture-in-picture, and effects curves that allow you to do velocity-based effects such as ease in and ease out, and alpha composites as well. So with that, let's dive into the Blackbird editor. Okay, so this is what the editor looks like sometimes, and then sometimes it just looks like this. Let's just switch this back. So you can see over here, sometimes it looks like this, and I will switch my layouts frequently where I'll be changing this screen snapshot of making it easier for me to use the application for the type of work that I will be doing. So let's load up a sequence over here just to begin with. So what does Blackbird look like when you're playing video? And I'm hoping you can see all this. I'm assuming you can. So here we are, it's just simply playing through video. And of course, I can jump up and down from clip to clip, go from transition point to transition point. Obviously, I can do things like trim clips, rearrange clips, things like that. So that's kind of, frame accurate editing. We're not getting into the heavy duty editorial processes, but more into the effects processes. So let's start with something super simple. Horizontally along this timeline, as you can see, I can just jump to these edit points, and I could certainly apply a transition point over here. There is a transition point. This happens to be a simple dissolve, a blend from one shot to another, and that works perfectly fine. Super simple. You can just add it on use it from the toolbar. I can do this through a keyboard control. I can adjust the trim positions, and obviously the duration can change according to the length that I want to do over here. So you can see I can make those types of adjustments. Additionally, I could open up this small video transition palette, and this allows me to change the effect type. And again, we don't use the R word inside Blackbird. We do not render. Everything is expected to play in real time, to give you real-time feedback of these transitions. So that gives you kind of this example of kind of the easiest type of transition we can do. Next, what I'd like to do is I would like to start working with time-based transitions, being able to take a shot like this, for instance, and maybe I want it, again, working horizontally on the timeline, being able to speed up or slow down a shot. Obviously, this is a long tracking shot of this river run, if you will, just like that. There we go. But at some point, I would like to do what would be known as a speed bump or speed ramp. I'm not going to do a logarithmic speed ramp, but I am going to build a match frame over here. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to move this edit point down just a little bit more to give me a little bit more run up time. And instead of just trimming, I'm going to adjust the speed. So you can see as I adjust the speed into a fast motion, there's a little bar on top that tells me exactly how many times I've speeded up the shot, and the result would be something like this. That would allow me to speed up and perfectly match frame into the next shot, just like that. And again, super simple. If I want to speed it up again, there you go. That gives you a little bit better example of how that works. So that's what we would call a motion effect. And at any point, I can add another edit point over here. So there we're going from normal motion. And if I want to speed ramp that up again, I'll just do that really, really quickly. And you can kind of see the result. There you go. So a perfect match frame speed ramp. So super easy to perform this type of task. Now, this is what I would call horizontal editing, right? Super easy to deal with that. Now, I'm going to dive right away into something a little bit more advanced, and I'm going to show you some sublayers. Now, I can click on this video track 1, and I can expose color effects, transform effects, and image effects. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to back up a little bit, and I'm going to apply a template. I'm going to show you how I create these a little bit later on as well. But let me just drag and drop this one that's called Blur Flash Scale. Right? There it is, Blur Flash Scale. And the result looks something like this. So again, a little bit of a more advanced transition that is saved as a template. And I promise I will explain how these transform effects work and how this blur works. This blur actually fades in and fades out, the transform effect on top, and then a flash, what we would define as a logarithmic flash to white. And it gives you a really interesting transition between one shot and another. And they're super easy to apply. You just drag and drop them over to the edit monitor. So that is the first introduction to some effects. Now we're going to look at some layer transition, because right now these have all happened on one video track. Now we're going to start to build some layers. Let me clear this sequence out. Don't really need this anymore. I'm going to open up another sequence. Now, in this sequence, what we have, which is kind of interesting, is we have this layer A and layer B, and you can see how these layers work. I'm going to switch my layout to a 2-layer layout, just like this, because these are some of the tools I'm going to need. I'm going to go into full screen mode. Now, there's layer B down below, layer A on top. On video track, I'll collapse that. There you go. There's layer A, there's layer B, and you can see the difference between the layers that are over here, just like that. Now, I do not have to apply these effects one by one. Here are some effects, some templates that I've created, conceals in this case, push effects, and you can see there's a whole plethora of them over here. We can just drag and drop the entire folder onto the layer, and you'll see the result kind of gives you, these are called the L conceals, right? Just like that. Like, let's push some push effects over here. Again, I'll put them in date order, and I'll expose what's happening under the hood here in just 1 second. So there's some push effects that are happening just like that. So what has happened is very much like we did in the original layer. The effects actually are buried in a sub layer. So you can see how these transform effects reside below the original layer. And there's some transform effects that are happening over there. And then I have a whole variety of them here. I have about 40 different. We don't have to run through every single effect. However, let's jump in to the next shot and show you how we create these. Okay, so very quickly, I'm just going to we'll build a zoom layer. You can see again, we have a layer over here. There's layer 1 and there's layer 2. And layer 2 takes priority over layer 1 as it is revealed, just like that. This is how we create the actual effect. I'm going to open up my transform tool. And in this case, I've turned off the linear keyframe. So this is now going to create an animation. This is the start frame. This is the end frame. I'm just going to use my roller wheel, and I'm just going to expose this as a transform effect. And you can see the result over here. There is the result of the transform. Now, a couple things that are really interesting about this. Once this is created, we could now play with the velocity of the transform effect. I'm going to switch from linear, because you can see it's linear, the original, and there it is, there's linear. And now we're going to adjust the Bezier curve, and I can adjust all sorts of parameters of that. But in this case, I'll just take it to all. This vertical represents velocity or value. This represents time. And I'm just going to drag this over. And now you can see the result of doing a zoom effect. And any type of animation that you want to create, you can apply this. So it basically begins fast and slows down. I'm hoping Zoom, of course, may not show you, the webinar may not show you this in perfect frame accurate real time because it's going through a screen share, but at my end, it is absolutely accurate. And the same thing is easy to apply to save as a sequence. So let's maybe do a 2-layer effect one more time over here. Let's put another push in, and let's do a top to bottom push, drag and drop. Again, when I drag and drop, it's exposed on the bottom, and there is a push effect. So that gives you an example of how a simple layer transition works. And I've, again, applied all these different templates, just like that. Next, let's open up another sequence. Let's go to let's go to my save sequences. There we are. Clear this one out because we don't need this anymore. And I'm going to just switch my view to just a single layer effect there, just like that. And when I open this up, let's go back to webinar content. There it is, edits, and this is the one we want over here. Perfect. Okay, so we've opened up another sequence over here. Now we're going to go into some of these sub layers, and you can see the effects have changed from transform effects into image processing effects. And if we take a look at this sequence over here, we have just a street shot of people walking along the street, but perhaps this person is not supposed to be seen. We're going to want to redact their face. We're going to want to possibly blur it. And this is how we're going to do it. Again, go into full screen mode so you can see this. I'm going to apply an image effect over here. And let's take this one over there. And we're going to blur the entire shot. Now you can see I have different blur values that over here. I even have crop values with alpha channel and mosaic and some other things like that. However, let's just go back to a simple blur. Now, the blur and the image effects works in two parts in this example. I'm going to add a mask. And there we go. Oops, let's remove that. There we go. Let's do that over here. Add the mask. There we go. So there's the mask, and you can kind of see the shape over here. I'm going to lock those keyframes together, and now I'm going to change the shape, something that, you know, is more apropos, which is like a circle. Perhaps I want to adjust this over time so you can kind of see it. You know, if I played right now, for instance, they would just be walking through the mask, but we're going to want to animate this mask as well. So let's jump to the first keyframe, turn on the animation parameters, and I'm just going to approximate the position over here of where she is on the first keyframe. I'm going to jump to the last keyframe, and I'm going to approximate the position. And let's see the result just instantly over here. So it's not bad. We've adjusted this over time. At any point in time, though, I could, if I want to make a slight adjustment, I could insert a keyframe just like that. So let's say in the middle part of this, I want to maybe scale this down just a little bit and adjust the position of this. Now it's building the animation over time, and you can see where that keyframe resides. And of course, I can pick up and move that keyframe along any point in time if I want. So that gives you the ability to redact. However, what's really interesting is I can change the blur value without penalty, still applying different blur values if I need to change that, but the mask remains the same. So the proof of that is if I change it to crop, you can kind of see there it is animating along using a crop. So I can change the image process at that point in time as well. Super easy to do. And of course, you could have multiple layers of these image effects, up to 4 layers of these image effects as well. So let's go back, take a look at, let's go back to our template over here, and let's load in a couple things that are interesting over here. Let's go back to color and alpha over here, and we're going to now make some adjustments. Now, being able to adjust color is done through gestural motion of your mouse and what type of image you're clicking on. So if I click on a darker area over here, I can adjust things like the black levels. I have the ability to crush the black level. If I click on a lighter area, I can adjust the white levels just like that. You can see the histogram come up accordingly. If I move the mouse left and right, I adjust saturation values, and that's perfectly fine. In the sublayer, this is what it looks like. You can see a stripe over here. However, if I want to get a little bit fancier and do a vignette, I have some grade masks. Now, this really leads into alpha channel effects, because now we're going to start working with the alpha channel. I have a whole variety of grade masks that I have over here. I have the ability, let's say we take 4 equal corners, and let's not apply it like that. Let's apply it like this. There we go. So and I'm going to show you the result difference. Okay, so there it is, you know, a more intense look, and you can see there's my grade mask on the top layer. I could jump into a sub layer if I need to maybe adjust the scale position so it doesn't creep into the frame as much. Super easy to do that. And then of course plays in real time, just like that. So there is a grade mask. A couple of other things just really quickly. You can see here I have kind of a very simple burst to white transition between this. Again, alpha channel effect over here. Let's take this blackbird transition. Let's apply it maybe to the halfway point. And you can see this is one that goes from transparent to fully opaque to semi-transparent to transparent. So again, full alpha channel support applied in this to use as a as an effect transition. And then finally, in this example, I'm going to load, let me just load this as a source just so you can see the result here. Let's scale that up. There we go. So here is a title template. Now, I created the bar outside of Blackboard, but the titles themselves are actually created in Blackboard. So if I apply this, and again, template, just park at the position, drag and drop, and apply it. That's how easy it is to do. And once you do that, now you can begin to modify the content of this as well. So here's the content down below, which is first name or first last or second line. And I'm just going to actually call it something. I'm going to call this maybe River Tour. Let's double click on this. And we're going to call it River Tour, just like that. And this line over here is, I'm going to call it in upper and lower, Travel Series. There we go. And the result is very quickly play it. And you can see not only does the top layers animate, but the titles animate. And if we go into the sub layers of the titles, you can see very much I applied a transform effect with a keyframe, and it kind of fades in over time and then resolves itself, right? So super easy to build these, super easy to apply these over and over again without a lot of effort to do any of that. Let's go clear this sequence out. Now we're going to go finally into some layers, and I know we have about 3 or 4 minutes left, and I will do this really quickly. Let's take a look at this crop layer with a kiosk. Again, if you take a look underneath, you can see multiple sub layers happening at the same time. And the result is you get this beautiful crop, animated crop effect along with a transform effect. And that resolves itself at the end. And let's talk about how we created this. Now, I'm not going to do it with this specific shot, but I just wanted to kind of show you that example. But let me show you something that has 3 layers over here. So here we have 3 layers. Again, layer 5, 4, and 3. You can see independent shots over here. And let's just go over to the webinar content, go back to my templates, and go to my multi-crop templates. And in this case, I'm going to apply an animated, this is just an animated template. And I'm going to, this is one called top to bottom. Apply it, and you can see the result is an animated crop that works from the top to the bottom. However, that's not quite what I want. I'm going to apply this one, and this one is an animated crop that the middle one reveals upward, the other ones reveal low. However, issue very quickly. Take a look. I'm going to, let's go to layers 3, 4, and 5. There we go. The issue is you actually can't, there is a motorcyclist over here, but you can't see him. So we're going to jump into the nest of the effect. And that we can see is easily visible on the bottom layer. And I'm going to now adjust the bottom layer. And let me just switch over here. The effects layers 3, 4, and 5 there. That's what I wanted you to see. So jump into the bottom layer, and there's the crop effect, as you can see, animated. However, let's now pan and scan the motorcycle. Oops, let me just do it to all the frames together. There we go. We're going to pan and scan the motorcycle so that this is in the center of the frame. And now you can see it fixes it just like that. Same thing, of course, can happen into the waterfall. Maybe I want a more interesting part of the waterfall. Again, adjust the nest over time, and you can kind of see the result. And again, the entire effect remains, except we've just adjusted those positions over time. So that gives you a little bit of an overview of how We work from horizontal to sublayers, to image effects, to visual layers, to effects layers, including alpha channel effect and motion effects as well. Now, we do have a couple of questions in our QA. So there is a question about editing the font. Absolutely, you can, whether you can change the font and edit the font, absolutely, you can do that. So if I switch back over here, I'll just quickly show you. That's a very good question. So if you took something like this and you wanted to change the font, I'll just go font, font, font. All of this is actually controlled through a sub layer over here where I can adjust fonts. These are true type fonts, and you can see I can just change this as well as change all the parameters of this, whether the background gets changed, and adjust the alpha channel and things like that. And the next question, of course, is can we upload a custom font? Yes, we actually do this today. We do this with our support people. So you would tell our support people what fonts you want injected into the Blackbird environment, and we can take care of that for you. So absolutely. And yeah, you're welcome. And since I see these QAs coming up over here, if there's any other questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them. You could contact us at commercial@blackbird.video. And of course, the links are on the website. But with that, I thank you very much. We try to run these webinars once a month. Each month is a different subject. And we still haven't decided what the next one is, but this was, of course, effects. And we thank you very much for joining this webinar. Thanks a lot, everyone.